Hello and welcome to another podcast with me, Matt Houlihan. I must apologise. I've had a bit of a hiatus since my last share with you, talking about British comedy, but it is the summer, so obviously things take longer when the sun's out. Now, this episode, I'd like to talk about arts and crafts. I believe that in the West, in highly urbanised, advanced cities and around the world, we've gotten used to exceptional levels of privilege, a throwaway culture where many highly complex products are built using vast amounts of resources only to be used once and then thrown away, if they're lucky, to be recycled into another object. It's an incredible tragedy, I think, considering our earlier human ancestors would have prayed for such things. Yet we will happily use an entire glass bottle, most of a dishwasher, plastic toy, a piece of computer, such well-sourced, highly refined materials. And then we use them maybe for a day, a week, a few years, and they're in a bin. They're in a landfill. One thing which my grandparents' generation did, which I wholeheartedly endorse, is the repurposing and reuse of everyday materials and goods and products. Clothing, objects, boxes, materials, things which can easily be used again, which most of the work has been done with, which we simply need to use a bit of imagination, a bit of skill and a bit of work to save ourselves some money and to help the environment and to make use of the goods. With that in mind, the last number of years taken an interest in sewing, patching, creating things. I made a costume recently, a fat costume, out of a duvet, out of a shirt and pyjama bottoms. That was fairly straightforward. It was a learning process. The last couple of months I worked out how to make a laptop bag, and in the intervening time I've completed it. The laptop bag came to me as a concept out of necessity. I needed something I could comfortably and safely protect my laptop in. I didn't fancy spending 30 or 80 quid on something. So I had an Italian leather sofa which we couldn't move and we had to demolish, and took the leather off that. I had an old tartan picnic blanket and 2 leather belts and a Wing Chun Kung Fu punch bag. A bunch of buttons, a bunch of waxed thread and leather needles, and I proceeded to day by day work out what to do. Ideas came to me, must have taken about, in total, hours work time, maybe 6 or 7, I don't know. It was a lot of fun, and it's a beautiful piece in my eyes, and it very comfortably sits on my back and carries the laptop close to the cushion on my back. It's so easy to create something and to appreciate an item or a tool when you have visualized it and literally brought it into being. You appreciate it so much more. You do not mistreat it. You do not knock it about or throw it in a corner. You care about it. And I've had a lot of compliments about it. And I think it's really interesting that it's so easy to do something like that. I think with a bit of practice, anyone can do it. It looks pretty great. It looks like it was handmade, but it's unique, it's beautiful, it's unusual. I am unsure how long it may last. A lot of wear and pressure seems to go onto the straps where they meet my shoulders and where they meet in the middle. But I think as an experiment, it's a pretty good sign that anyone without training can at least begin to learn how to make rudimentary clothing and bags. My next project is to make a leather waistcoat jacket jerkin thing, and I think it's such a waste when you see high quality materials not be put to good use. So it's a balance for me to try to find a compromise in what I'm willing to store for potential future use and what space I have. I'd be really curious to know other people's thoughts on that. Do you think it's a question of brands? Do you think that brands have a certain social value to be seen to wear a brand? Do you think there's anything redeeming about that? I wonder how many people would still want to wear a brand. I mean, If you look in Marks and Spencer's or Tesco or Sainsbury's or one of these major supermarkets, you'll see their own brand clothing lines, and they're very good quality. It really fascinates me that the markup in value of certain types of clothing, just because they are official with a certain name, with a certain company, which has a lot of advertising and things like that, and a reputation. But what's the actual physical difference between wearing that and wearing something which was made for Marks and Spencer's? I think it's a very clever business strategy, but I wonder how helpful we are being towards ourselves in terms of our personal budget when we spend so much on highly expensive brands. Given that so many clothing items are super cheap in Western stores, Primark and places like that are made in Asia, what does that mean ethically for us? And also, what does it mean in terms of our ability to sustain ourselves? Self-sufficiency. We're only privileged to enjoy that because of the global trade and delivery technologies and agreements available. What do you guys think? It's fairly easy to patch up a duvet or to clean up a pair of shoes or do what people call hacks. But as a skill, as a culture, I think we could do more. I think we could transfer skills to each other. When it comes to other arts and crafts, I've started to learn the process of growing your own vegetables, and there are plenty of excellent companies online which can deliver heirloom seeds, which are original breeds of vegetables and fruits which are non-GMO affected, have nothing to do with the mass-produced foods that are available today, and they're very cheap seeds, and you can grow them very easily. That's a skill set worth learning. Other skill sets like basic carpentry, the ability to maintain or sustain your furniture, the interior decoration of your house, viability of your shelter that you live in. These are things which are well within our grasp, which we can easily lose touch with. And I remember there was a famous fiction book, science fiction, called The Machine Stopped, which was set in a future where people lived so disconnected from nature and everything else, they literally relied on automated, intelligent machines to sustain them throughout their lives, and they were like couch potatoes and didn't even have a social life with each other. It's comparable to the society we live in today. But what happened was the machine one day broke down and stopped and died, and everybody were suddenly thrust into naked, raw nature and were forced to live with the social outcasts who had not been a part of the machine's society and were forced to relearn the skills again and to become human again in an authentic, historic way. I think that's really interesting because I wonder how sustainable this highly automated, high production society is, especially given how irresponsibly these generations have been treating that technology and that privilege and the gift of fossil fuels and petroleum. What are we building sustainably with that? Because it won't last. We will reach peak oil and we will need to sustain 7, 8, 9 billion people on Earth. We want that transition to sustainable energy and sustainable technology to be smooth, or else we will face a bottleneck of population. We will go off a cliff of what is available to us. I'm really curious about all this, and I really would appreciate your thoughts and to hear what this talk has provoked in you. As ever, much appreciation for your listening and lots of love to all of you. Take care, be creative, and speak to you soon.